right, we're going to play a little truth and false game. You get to play. I want to hear your answers. You can just yell them out. I'm going to read a statement. You tell me if it's a true statement or a false statement. You ready? Here we go. Number 1, you can sneeze during sleep. The answer is false. All those senses that cause you, those triggers that cause you to sneeze are also asleep during that time. That's interesting. Number 2, Ron was raised in Ohio but met Bonnie at college in Michigan where he swept her off her feet. No, see, the answer is true. Everything in there is true. Oh, we're going to have some fun with you. All right, number 3, a rhinoceros horn is made of hair. Answer is true. Number 4, Ron's jokes are always funny. No, see, the answer is true. See? You guys you're missing a few here. Number 5, bats always turn right when leaving a cave. The answer is that's false. Believe it or not, they always turn left. Who knew that? Maybe you followed a few out on the road. Anyway, number 6, Abraham Lincoln had no middle name. Answer is true. True. Number 7, Twinkies originally had banana filling. True. The answer is true. Somebody knows their Twinkies. Good job. Last one, number 8, Ron gave up a lucrative modeling career to go into ministry.
Definitely true.
True. Thank you. Thank you. In every service, I've had some woman yell out true. All right. Thank you, Bonnie. All right. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what's true and what's false sometimes in our world. I get that. Where you go for truth is very important because there's a lot of deception out there. You know this. There are people who will deceive you on purpose. I like apple pie. I do not like zucchini. I avoid zucchini all the time. My wife and one of her close friends made a mock apple pie out of zucchini. I didn't even know that was possible. They served it up to me, and I ate it. And then Bonnie asked, how's your pie? It's good. And they giggled. My wife purposefully deceived me. Can you believe that? True. Yeah. Jesus said there's a huge emphasis inside his ministry. During his ministry, Jesus placed a huge emphasis on truth. 100 times he is talking about truth. Over and over again, he begins statements with, I tell you the truth. Truth's very important to him. Then he adds this. It's the truth that will set you free, he says. The truth will set me free. Free from what? From the sin that holds all of us in bondage. He gives us the truth on how to have that sin released in our life. What God says is important. What Jesus says is important. The question is, what say you regarding truth and lies? Today, Pilate, standing right in front of Jesus, who is the ultimate truth, will ask the question, what is truth? But he doesn't stick around to find out the answer. We're in John chapter 18. We're in the trial of Jesus just before the cross. He's now standing in front of Pilate. This is how the story is told in John 18, starting with verse 28. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. Okay, stop right here. A lot of history here. Right off the bat, you need to know that the Jewish culture taught, that the Sanhedrin taught, that a Gentile's house, an unbeliever's house, was considered unclean. And if you went into that house, you'd be considered unclean yourself. And so here they are. Here's this Jewish Sanhedrin, and they refuse to go into Pilate's house because they don't want to be made unclean before the Passover, that's the event we're at right now in the life of Jesus. It is so unbelievably hypocritical. Number one, if you go looking for that rule in the Old Testament, you're not going to find it. It's a man-made rule. The reason it's hypocritical in this moment is because they've held Jesus all night long in their own trial. The Jewish Sanhedrin took Jesus to the high priest, and they have held him all night long. They've mistreated him. They've hit him. They've slapped him. They beat on him all night long in what they considered a capital case. Now, catch this. In ancient times, the Jewish Sanhedrin had rules for how to conduct a capital case court. Here it is. No trial can happen at night. It had to wait till the next morning. They break that in regards to Jesus. No trial can happen on the Sabbath or during a festival like Passover. They break that. No trial can be done in private. If it's a capital offense, it has to be done out in the open in front of all these people so anyone can be a witness for him. And they break that. No high priest should ever interrogate the prisoner. But here, in the case of Jesus, both the high priest that he spends time with interrogate him and ask him questions. It's why, in the previous verses, Jesus calls them out for this. This whole trial of Jesus is a sham. But now they're bringing him before Pilate. Why? You know why, because they want him dead. Verse 29. So Pilate came out to them and he asked, well, what charges are you bringing against this man? Well, Pilate, if he were not a criminal, we surely would not have handed him over to you. Can you believe that for an answer? There's no clear charges here. Jesus broke no Roman law. Jesus broke no Jewish law. Jesus broke no moral law. Jesus broke no spiritual or scriptural law. Verse 31, Pilate said, well, then you take him yourself. Judge him by your own law. Oh, but we have no right to execute anyone, they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. All right, they could not execute someone. That's true. Well, then how do you explain what happens in Acts chapter 6 and 7 when they stoned Stephen? They were breaking the law, period. The people were not allowed to mount up and execute anyone. So right here, they're handing them over to the government because they want the government to do their dirty work. They're really tipping their hand here, by the way. We want him executed. And there's no charge against him. Verse 33. Pilate then went back into the palace. He summoned Jesus and he asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Well, is that your own idea, Jesus asked, or did others talk to you about me? For just a moment, I need you to picture what Jesus looked like in front of Pilate. Pilate, who's the governor of this region, who's acting like a king. Jesus, people call him the king of the Jews, but he's been beat on all night long. He doesn't look very kingly. And in Pilate's mind, he's got to be thinking, they're afraid of this guy? Really? Jesus could not have looked more frail than he did in that moment. It's his words that have unbelievable strength, though. Verse 35, well, am I a Jew? Pilate replied. Your own people, your own chief priest handed you over to me. What is it that you have done? Verse 36, Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. Now, look how Pilate takes this, verse 37. You are a king then. Jesus answered, oh, you are right to say I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the, oh, there it is, truth. And everyone on the side of truth listens to me. Wow. That's a pretty bold statement to make, isn't it? If you really want the truth, you're going to listen to everything I say. Isn't that what Jesus is saying? Jesus did not come to be a political king. He did not come to be a military king. But he's saying, I am the king. And in my kingdom, guess what? There's a truth there that's very important. How does Pilate respond to that? Verse 38, what is truth? And with this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there, and he said, I find no basis for a charge against him. Man, is that an important moment right there. I met with a skeptic once who told me, he said, the truth is the government of Jesus' time found him guilty and executed him. That's the truth. He was a guilty criminal. Whoa. That is not how the court records read. The truth of that moment is Pilate will try 4 different times to get Jesus released. And all 4 times, the government official of that time judges Jesus innocent. He's innocent of the charges. But to keep the peace, to keep the mob from going crazy, to keep them from going back to Rome and telling Caesar that he's not a good ruler, he gives Jesus over to be executed. But that is not his finding. If you want to know the truth about Jesus, it's right there in that verse, that he was innocent, he was not guilty. And then there's this whole what is truth moment, and he doesn't stick around to hear any truth, he just leaves. Boy, this represents our current world, this struggle with truth is a sliding scale for a lot of people. Well, there's my truth and there's your truth. Well, what if they don't line up? The whole definition of the word truth has to be in place, which is based on a fact, something that can be verified. There can't be 2 different kinds of truth. It doesn't fall into that category, but this is the world we live in right now. Are you okay with being lied to? The media lies to us all the time. We've learned to look the other way. Politicians lie to us all the time. We've learned to look the other way. It's almost expected today that we're being lied to. What has happened to the Christian culture who allows themselves to be lied to? Don't you want to know the truth? When you don't know the truth, it can pull us off course from God. Do you understand that? That deceit and lies can devour us. Paul would warn a church, beware of the dogs. They're everywhere. They're just looking to devour you with untruths. Bonnie and I go for bike rides out in the country. We enjoy that. Bonnie does not like dogs. There's this one house we sometimes go past, and we're hoping the dogs aren't out, but sometimes they are, and they're not people who keep their dogs leashed. And these dogs, they're not that bad, but when they come running out in the road and they're barking and they're growling and they're snarling and they're slobbering, it freaks my wife out, and she wants me to protect her, and I want to protect my wife, and so I put my bike between the dogs and her, and I'm yelling, but those dogs ignore me. They go right to her. What, you got bacon in your pocket or what? Just straight to her. And they're like, and they look like they're going to tear her apart, and she's yelling, and I'm yelling at the dogs, and I'm trying to push them back, and and finally we break away from the pack, and we're out ahead, and I look at my wife, and I'm like, honey, are you okay? And she looked at me, and she said, way to protect me. Here, boy, come here. You can have her. No, I'm just kidding. It's just, I tried to protect. There's something vicious about deceit, but we've softened ourselves so much to it. There's such an expectation on our part that people will lie to us. It's become a soft sin. And Jesus says, man, I want you to have the truth in all of this. People who listen to me want truth, he says. Even as I'm talking, there's some here today, you really don't want the truth. You found it easier to just not confront it, not to question it, but just to accept some lies in our life. And my premise is, if truth was important to God, and if truth was important to Jesus, shouldn't it be important to us too? Shouldn't you and I hunger for the truth? This goes all the way back to the beginning when God was putting the world together. He put laws in place. There are natural laws around us constantly. There's also a moral law that was placed on us by God. Break the moral law and you receive judgment and wrath. All of us have broken a moral law. We all have. I have. You have. And now all of a sudden that disobedience is called sin. What do we do with sin? We need something to remove the sin from our lives. That's Jesus. That's a truth that's out there. And we attach ourselves to him and we get forgiveness of that. But that doesn't change the fact that God did have a law, a moral law in place. Now let's go back right to that same time. There's this couple named Adam and Eve, and the story is told they're the first man and woman, and they're placed into a perfect garden, a paradise, the Garden of Eden. It's perfect. And they're told by God, hey, you can eat anything you want here, but just beware of one thing. That tree over there, the fruit of that tree will kill you. Don't eat that. That's what God told them. And so for a long time, they were really content inside the garden. And then along comes this serpent. And you need to know that the serpent is Satan. And what does he do? Catch this. The serpent comes, and the Bible says he was more crafty than all the wild animals that God had made. And the serpent comes, and he's tempting them. How come you don't eat of that tree over there? Right at the beginning, Eve answers correctly. She answers with the solid truth that God told her. If we eat of that fruit, it will kill us. That was true. Satan gets her to question that. Oh, come on. You won't die if you eat of that. And then Satan not only questions the truth, he comes in with a deception that sounds like it's true. It sounds right. What the serpent does is he tells Eve and Adam, if you eat of that, God's trying to keep you from that, because if you eat of that, you actually will become just like God. That's what will happen. He doesn't want you to have it. God's trying to keep you from something really good, something you really want. He's holding that back from you, and you should just go ahead and partake. So Adam and Eve, they eat of the fruit. And sure enough, God shows up. God's judgment comes with him. They're expelled from paradise. They now have this ugly world that they have to live in, full of thistles and thorns. And then ultimately, guess what? Adam and Eve die, which is what God said would happen. There was a moment of truth and a moment of deception. And Adam and Eve were allowed to choose. This morning, you have the truth of Jesus in front of you being offered to you, or there's a deception, a lie. And nobody here is going to force you to believe. It's your choice. You get to choose today. For some people, they hear about a Jesus who is born of a virgin, and he comes down to earth, and then he dies on a cross, but then he's resurrected. Now he's the Son of God and all this stuff. And for them, it's just too bizarre to believe. And you and I, we have come to know that as a truth. For them, they believe it's a lie. However, they believe there is no God, there is no judgment, and there is no wrath. And they don't know that all those things are true, and they're believing a lie. How do you know the difference? Here's how you know the difference. When Jesus was praying for you and I in John 17, verse 17, he prayed this prayer: sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. Now right there's where you go for your truth. It's your choice today. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. That's a truth. Don't sell out for a lie. The truth one day and having a life with Jesus pays huge dividends in the end. Huge payoff. But following and believing in a lie also has a payoff in the end. And it is not a price you want to pay.